Hey everyone, Bill Lethman here for Money Evolution. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about our brand new retirement planning course called the Retirement Time Machine. The purpose of this video is to kind of give you a little bit of a high-level overview of what the course is all about, but it's really going to be a lot more than that. I really want to get into some of the specific details, some things that are going to be some actionable ideas that you'll be able to take and implement right away, whether or not you decide to go forward with the course or not. So we've done hundreds of financial plans just over the last couple of years, and in doing that many financial plans, we really see all kinds of different situations, basically anything and everything under the sun. But one of the most important things that every single person, regardless of where they're at with their financial planning, where they're at with their savings or their assets, whether it's somebody that has $500,000 of investable assets or somebody that has $5 million of investable assets, it really all begins with creating a very clear vision and really kind of mapping out what it is that they want their retirement to look like. And so we begin with this. We sometimes call this vision, or I call it vision. In fact, I've actually done other videos in the past on this. One of my favorite books of all time is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and he talks about having the right map. And if you have the wrong map, you could be going, driving 100 miles an hour, everything looks crystal clear, but you're going in the wrong direction and you're really going towards a destination that you really don't want to get to. So one of the first things to understand as we're going into retirement planning is how some of your expenses and even some of your income is going to change or evolve over time. Sometimes I've called this the retirement timeline, and I think that's a very important exercise for people to do as well, is to really sort of map out what are some of the key dates or times when key monumental events are going to be happening. It could be something like a mortgage being paid off, or it could be my retirement date, it could be my spouse's retirement date, maybe the age that we reach our full retirement age for Social Security benefits, maybe it's when a pension's starting. So we want to really kind of create that map. But if we're talking about maybe our situation right now, and again, everybody watching this video is going to probably be at a little bit different spot. Some people may already be in retirement, some people may be very close, and some of you may be a little ways away yet, maybe 5 or 10 years or more away from retirement. And so what we really want to think about is how some of those income and expenses are going to change over time. And so if we think about our situation right now, and I'm going to kind of maybe use some of my own life experiences here and share with you some of how I've evolved through this over time. And I'm obviously still working. In fact, I actually just had a 50th birthday here a couple of weeks ago. So to kind of put that in perspective, that's my milestone. And I've got 2 kids in college right now, so we've got some college expenses going. When the kids were little, we did a lot of very active sports. So my daughter was in soccer, my son was in hockey. We did all kinds of different things. We did the gymnastics and the school sports and private school tuition and everything. So our expenses, like a lot of yours, have definitely evolved over time. And so the first thing we want to do is think about what some of those expenses are right now. And if you have kids that are at home and maybe you have some expenses that are specifically tied to them, think about what those expenses are. If you have soccer, and you could kind of go through and say, okay, we have a soccer fee for that. If it's a travel soccer club or whatever, it costs this much money per year. There's maybe some uniforms, there's maybe some equipment, some new shoes, cleats. At one time we had this whole box of shoes and cleats and skates that were in our garage, and there must have been 100 pairs in there. And it was, the spring shoes, the indoor shoes, the skates, the kids' school shoes, their gym shoes, and it just like, oh my gosh, you could spend a fortune just on shoes. So kids are definitely one of those areas. We love them, but they tend to be expensive. And so as the kids kind of move through the household and eventually move out on their own, once we get to that retirement age, a lot of those kids' expenses may not necessarily be there. So as you're going through this, you could create some very simple worksheets, or just pull out the legal pad and really sort of write some of these things down of what kinds of expenses you have today, and then maybe how some of those expenses are going to change in the future. Travel is going to be another one of those. And maybe right now while you're working, maybe you don't travel as much, or maybe if you do travel, you got to think about if you've got a family, maybe you're buying 4 or 5 plane tickets to go someplace, or maybe you need 2 rooms because your family is so large. If you have 4 kids or something like that, you might need to get 2 hotel rooms. So you want to think about what those travel expenses are today. How often are you traveling? What kind of traveling are you doing? Are you going for a camping trip, which may be very low cost, or are you going to something extravagant like a 2-week cruise in Hawaii? There's obviously some pricing differences there. And then think about what that travel is going to look like in retirement. And it may be that the number of people changes. Maybe it's just you and your spouse that are traveling in retirement, or maybe you want to plan for some big family vacations. Maybe, like we don't have grandkids yet, but at some point when we do, we would like to be able to budget in a big, huge family trip, at least maybe once a year, doing something that's going to involve the entire family, our kids, their spouses, our future grandkids, and that might involve getting a beach condo that can have 3 or 4 bedrooms or something like that. If we want to go to Disney World and take everyone, there's definitely some expenses. And so really, it's kind of fun, actually. I enjoy this. It's really, thinking ahead, putting that vision together. If you really want to get into it, you could actually even call a travel agent, or, travel agents that probably don't exist too much anymore, but you could go online and price out a trip and see, call a couple hotels or whatever and see what would it cost if we did this, look on Airbnb, and that might give you some really good ideas of what that's going to look like. But we really want to get this picture clear, what our expenses are now versus when they're going to retire. So we kind of started with some of that, the kids and the travel, because those are some of the lifestyle expenses that tend to change a lot. Another one, just to throw it in there really quickly, would be things like hobbies and recreation. If you're a golfer, you may say, I golf, if I'm lucky, maybe I golf once every couple of weeks, but in retirement, I want to golf 2 or 3 times a week. So, there's a cost to that. What does it cost? How much per round? What kind of fees are involved with that? If you're going to do it, in Michigan here, we might get 6 months of golf or whatever a year. So think about that. If you want to do some extended travel, that's another thing to think about. So maybe if you live in a cold weather winter climate like we have in Michigan, maybe you want to think about, hey, I want to budget $6,000, $8,000 for a couple of months just for a rental unit for a couple of months in retirement. So think about that. What we also want to do, of course, is we also want to think about our other basic expenses. All of us are going to have some housing expenses. Some of us have multiple homes. And what I would say to do is to do one of these for each home that you have. Think about what are some of those monthly expenses that you might have. And then I like to call it, what are some of those random or irregular expenses there. I always want to write IRA for some reason, whenever I write IR. But some of those random irregular expenses, monthly things would be things like, maybe if you're paying your property taxes and insurance through your payment, that might be monthly. It might be some utilities as part of that. Other irregular things, if you do pay property taxes once or twice a year, property taxes might be a good example of that. Things like your debt, I want to put that into a completely separate category. And again, that's going to be one of these things as we start to map that out. Debt is one of those things that I think will change for most people. For example, you might have a mortgage right now, and maybe you're paying $3,000 a month for that mortgage, but it's going to be paid off in 5 years or 10 years or something like that. So that $36,000, as we get into mapping this cash flow, that's going to be a $36,000 swing for us as we get into that. So house, do one of those for each house. Don't forget things like maintenance and lawn service fees, snow removal fees, window cleaning, housekeeper, and make sure that you're allocating a proper amount for some of those things that we just don't know what's going to happen. A new roof that needs to get put on, or a house needs to get painted. And some of those things you can kind of think ahead and say, yeah, it's probably going to be something that's going to need to be done in the next couple of years. I'll need a new roof or a new paint job on the house, something like that. But think about that. Don't forget that, because that's one of the things that can very quickly and easily blow up a budget when you're so dialed in. You've got, hey, I'm doing a great job on saving all this stuff, and then, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I needed a new furnace, and that gives you a setback there. So do that for each house. You're going to do the same thing. We call it cars, boats, and RVs and other toys, so whatever those are. And ideally probably do one of these for each one of those. If you have 6 motorcycles, dirt bikes and things like that, you don't need to probably do one for each one of those. You can kind of lump those all in together, but do one for each car, probably each boat. You're going to think about things again in terms of monthly, and then those random or irregular expenses, annual expenses. It could be boat storage fees, docking fees, winterization of your boat, shrink wrapping. It could be, the fuel for your car. Think about how many miles you drive, what's the miles per gallon that your car gets, and you can do a quick calculation. So if you get 2,000 miles a month, you get 20 miles to a gallon, so you're going to use 100 gallons of gas in the month. If gas is $3 a gallon, you've got $300 of fuel expenses for the month. So thinking about some of those things could certainly be good. And then lifestyle, and that's another one too. We kind of talked about lifestyle with the kids and everything. So you're going to think about things like groceries, dining out, and other hobbies and things like that. So if you have kids at home, your kids eat like my kids. When they start getting in college, they start having friends come over, and you've got 6 or 8 people for dinner, a couple times a week because they've got friends over, and you want that. Your grocery bill is going to be high. But again, as the kids move out and everything, that's going to be a little bit lower. So think about what those expenses are today versus what those are going to be in the future. And then ultimately, what we want to do. The ultimate goal, this is where we're going to kind of end on this, and this is just the beginning part. We've developed worksheets for all of this, and so these are things that you could start thinking about, and if you do end up enrolling in the course, this is going to be super valuable because you're going to be able to take some of these ideas and you're going to get a little bit of a jump start on some of the things that we're going to be going into. So we've developed worksheets that are going to have a category, so it's going to be very simple for you to just fill in things. It's a little bit time consuming, but having a category and a place to put everything is going to make it super easy. You're not going to be sitting there with a blank legal pad like you might be here to some degree. So what this is ultimately going to do, and this is going to be again the first part of the course, is we're going to be developing a cash flow model. And so we're going to be looking at income, money coming in, and again, this is something that's going to evolve over time. That's more than likely going to be salaries from jobs and bonuses. You might have things, some people have like rental income or some other source, business income of some sort. So you're going to think about all those different sources of income. You're going to think about how those sources of income may change. I may decide to work till I'm 65, but my spouse may retire 5 years before me. So that's going to be something that's going to be a milestone. And as you're working out this timeline, you're gonna have that figured out and say, well, so my income is going to go till I'm 65, but my wife Christy is going to maybe her income is going to go to age 60. So I need to think about that, and I might need to do a different cash flow model for each of those periods. Down in the future, we're both going to get Social Security. I'm spelling that right there. And so if I just say, for a quick reference point, at 67, I'm going to get my Social Security benefit, and my wife will get hers. She's a year younger, so when she's 67. So those are going to be things that we're going to start to fill in some numbers for that. And again, we might end up with 3 or 4 or 5 of these different cash flow models so we can see exactly how these expenses and incomes are going to evolve over time. So we're going to have our sources of income, and we're going to have a total with that, and then we're going to have some withdrawals. And they're going to fall into a couple of categories. So again, our expenses, as we're talking about, and that's really the most important thing to understand here, is the expenses are going to evolve over time, and so we're going to have those now expenses. We might even have something we call an early retirement expenses. So maybe early on, if let's say we retire before Medicare kicks in, at 65, we might have some higher medical expenses for health insurance. That's one thing. Maybe if our kids are still living with us in those early phases of retirement, depending on how early you're retiring and the ages of your kids, you might still have some of those early retirement expenses, or you might even still have a mortgage payment in early retirement. So you're going to figure out what that is. And then what I like to do is then kind of carry that over and look at what the full retirement expenses are. And then we're also going to have taxes. This is really one thing that we spent a lot of time on. The tax code is extremely complicated. You've seen me watch, you've probably watched videos where I've done things on the tax code, mapping all this stuff out. There's a lot of different moving pieces. So I created, I think it's about 4 or 5 pages, very, very simple. It's like pull this number, do this, multiply by this. We've got some quick reference guides and everything like this. We're going to really help you to get a very crystal clear understanding of your taxes and how much is going to taxes, what types of taxes, how all of your different sources of income may be taxed a little bit differently. So we're going to give you some really great tools there on taxes. For now, if you want to just do a quick reference, you can go back to last year's tax return. Just look at the total tax on your federal tax return. You can go to your state tax return. If you have a state income tax, you can look at what the tax is there and just kind of match that up, put some numbers in there so you can get an idea of what those taxes are. And then also don't forget, if you're working, you're going to have those FICA taxes. So that's going to be your Social Security and Medicare. That's not going to show up on your federal tax return. You'll actually have to go to your pay stub. So just pull your year-end pay stub. Again, we've got this all worked out in a very simple way to pull all those numbers together in our worksheets. But if you go to your pay stub December 31st, you should be able to see what your total was for your FICA taxes for the year and add that. So again, what we're doing is we're going to have total income. And then we're going to subtract your expenses, your taxes, and then the other thing is savings, okay? And so hopefully you're saving some money, you're putting money into a 401k plan, maybe your spouse is, maybe you're doing an IRA, maybe you're even doing some savings in a non-retirement account. And so income minus all of those outflows, okay? So we're going to say we're going to total outflows, and that's going to equal your net cash flow. Okay, and for a lot of you probably watching the video, because you probably have dialed this in, and most people tend to increase their expenses up to the level of income. But again, you've got some savings that are in here too. Most people's net cash flow is going to be pretty close to maybe a break even. Hopefully it's positive by a little bit, and some people might be positive by a little bit more. If that number is a bigger number, some things to think about is, are there other opportunities that you can go and save more money up here? Are you completely maxing out your 401k plan? Are you taking advantage of something called the after-tax savings within your 401k that could allow you to save up to $63,000 if you're over 50 through a combination of your contributions into the 401k, the employer contributions, and then that after-tax bucket? That's something we get into in a lot more detail in the course. We've talked about it in other videos too, but there could be other savings there. One of the big questions is, do you need to be saving more money? So again, as you're painting this vision for yourself, looking at what that is, one of the things we ultimately want to solve for is we're going to do the same thing and try to figure out what those future expenses are, what your future taxes are, the net cash flow, and basically how much do you need on an annual basis after you have some of your sources of income. And in retirement, you might have a pension, you might have Social Security, and then and some of this is going to involve a little bit more math. One of the things I'm going to do inside the course is I'm going to teach you how to use a financial calculator. Get my iPad woke back up here. But just to give you kind of an idea, one of the real simple formulas that you can use is something called the 4% rule. That's something that was created back in, I believe, like 1991 or 1992 by William Bengen. He was a financial planner that basically did some backdated math on the different financial markets and what he called sequencing of returns, something that I've talked about on the videos as well. And that is to give us an idea of, if we have a pool of money, how much money we can take out of that on an annual basis and have a pretty good chance that money is going to last us for the rest of our life. So 4% is a good rule of thumb. There is a lot of new studies that are out there that suggest 4% actually might be a little bit high, that the new number might be more like 3% or 2.5%. So if you want to make it a little bit more conservative, you can do that. But just to give you kind of an idea of, let's say that after your income sources in retirement, you're short $100,000. That means you have to take $100,000 from your portfolio. If you divide that by 0.04, that means that at retirement you would need to have $2.5 million, $2.5 million at retirement. So again, if you've got some excess cash flow here, we don't want to fall into the trap that says, you got to save all that, or that, if you're not maxing out your 401k, you should, because if you've done a good job saving and you've mapped this out, you're comfortable with where that future retirement is, maybe some of that bigger cash flow just means that, hey, you know what, I don't have to wait till I retire to go to Hawaii with my family. I don't have to, wait till retirement to, buy a boat that our whole family can enjoy right now while the kids are young and able to do that. So that's really what this is all about. It's really about helping you to understand what's most important to you and your family, and how your money is going to be able to help you to allow to do that. So that's just kind of the early part. That's the beginning part of what we're going to do in the course, and really help you to become crystal clear of that. Once we understand that, then the course is, of course, going to get into a lot of other things like how to optimize Social Security, understanding what's going on there. A lot of what I do is going to be focused on taxes, understanding how your taxes may change or evolve over time, making sure that you're saving money into the right categories. Should you be continuing to do money into the traditional 401k, or maybe you need to change that to Roth? So we're going to, again, understand what that looks like, and then based on what your future needs are, future inflation. So, we oversimplified this, of course, so one of the things we want to do is figure out, okay, if I need this much money in today's dollars in retirement's 10 years from now, what does that look like from an inflation standpoint? And if I need $100,000 to spend, what does that look like when I factor taxes into that? So those are things that, again, I did oversimplify it a little bit here, but this should at least give you the ideas that you could start to formulate some of this, put this down, and really take that first step towards, getting your retirement in a good spot where you can start to feel confident about what you're doing, and really maybe giving you the green light to say that, hey, I don't have to be, quite as tight today. We can have some money, some fun with that money today, and start spending some of that. So anyway, that's kind of an overview. We're going to continue to do some of these. So check back and check out the retirementtimemachine.com if you're not watching it directly on that page. And you can put in your email address and continue to get updates as we come out with those. So anyway, hope this has been valuable to you. I'm excited to launch this course, and I hope that you'll be with us when we launch to participate in it. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day.